I'm a 34-year-old guy, a software engineer by profession. I've been married to Jenna for 5 years, and we've been together for 9. She's 32, works in HR, and for most of those years, we were the couple everyone admired. You know the kind. The ones who finish each other's sentences, host dinner parties with matching wine glasses, laugh at private jokes in crowded rooms. Our friends used to say we were the ideal, and for a long time, I believed that too. I'm not the kind of guy who overanalyzes every little thing. I've always believed that if something feels right, it probably is. And with Jenna, it always felt right. She was my best friend, my partner, my anchor when life got chaotic. We had built a life full of routines and quiet joy, Sunday morning pancakes, Friday movie nights, spontaneous road trips when work wasn't too demanding. Looking back now, maybe I loved the routine a little too much. Maybe she didn't. The first signs were so small I almost missed them. At first, I chalked it up to work stress. Jenna started coming home later than usual. She said they were short-staffed. Fair enough. Then there were sudden team dinners she hadn't mentioned before, and occasional weekend meetings. I didn't question it. I trusted her. We had always had that kind of bond, open, honest, built on mutual respect. At least that's what I thought. It wasn't just the schedule, it was her energy. Something shifted. Her laughter didn't come as easily. Her texts got shorter. Sometimes she'd be scrolling on her phone late into the night, her screen tilted just slightly away from me. One night, I asked her what she was watching, and she said, just memes, with a smile. I wanted to believe her, so I did. But deep down, something had started to itch, a quiet, persistent doubt I couldn't shake. I started to notice how guarded she had become. Her phone, which once lay openly on the nightstand, was now always locked.
She'd take it with her to the bathroom, which she never used to do. I told myself I was being paranoid. I even felt guilty for thinking anything was wrong. We were married. She loved me. I loved her. That should have been enough, right? There was one moment that still sticks with me. She came home one evening wearing a necklace I hadn't seen before. It was elegant, silver, with a small emerald stone. I asked her about it, and she said it was a gift from work, part of an employee appreciation thing. That struck me as odd. HR giving jewelry as rewards. Maybe it was a corporate thing I wasn't familiar with. Still, I smiled and said it looked beautiful on her. But later that night, I checked her email on our shared laptop, just to see if there was any mention of the gift. Nothing. No event, no announcement, no thank you thread from coworkers. Just nothing. Even then, I didn't confront her. I didn't want to accuse her of something I couldn't prove. I wanted to be the better man, the trusting husband. But my gut kept twisting. I started noticing more. How quickly she'd put her phone away when I entered the room. How she avoided eye contact when we talked about our future. The intimacy had faded, replaced with something quieter, more distant. We were still living together, sharing meals, sharing a bed. But emotionally, we were in different worlds. Everything came crashing down when I found a receipt. It was wedged in between the pages of a book she kept on the coffee table, a novel she never actually read. The receipt was for a weekend hotel stay, a romantic suite for 2. The date matched the weekend she claimed to be on a wellness retreat with her colleagues. My heart sank. My hands trembled as I read it over and over again. I couldn't make sense of it. Part of me wanted to believe it was for a friend. Maybe she'd booked it for someone else. Maybe it was a mistake. But I knew better. I sat with it for 2 days. I didn't sleep. I didn't eat properly.
I went to work like a zombie, staring at code I couldn't process. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every time she walked into the room, I felt my throat tighten. I wanted answers, but I was terrified of hearing them. That Sunday morning, the house was quiet. Jenna was making coffee in the kitchen, humming to herself like everything was fine. I walked in, holding the receipt. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just asked, Are you seeing someone else? She didn't flinch, didn't even pretend to be shocked. Instead, she looked at me with a strange calmness, almost like she had rehearsed this moment. She placed the coffee mug on the counter and leaned back slightly. Then she said, "Yes, I've been waiting for you to ask." The room spun. I stared at her, waiting for her to say she was joking, or that she meant something else, anything else. But she didn't. She just stood there, arms folded, looking at me like I had finally caught up to a truth she'd known for a long time. She told me it started after one of our arguments 2 years ago. Something stupid, about money or dishes or work schedules. I don't even remember. She said she felt alone, said I'd become distant, buried in my work, emotionally unavailable. She needed comfort, and someone gave it to her. But it wasn't just anyone. It was Ryan. Ryan, my best friend since high school, my best man at our wedding, the guy I'd shared dorm rooms with in college, who had crash-landed on our couch more times than I could count. That Ryan. I couldn't breathe. My legs gave out, and I sat down at the kitchen table, staring into space as she kept talking. She said it just happened, that she didn't plan for it to go that way, that it started with drinks, a conversation, a shared moment of frustration. I didn't respond. I couldn't. The room felt too small, my chest too tight. My world had cracked wide open. She told me she stayed with me because she wasn't sure what she really wanted. Said part of her still loved me, but the rest had drifted. She said Ryan understood her in ways I didn't anymore, that he listened, that he made her feel seen. I asked her how long it had been going on. She said 1.5 years. 1.5 years. While I was planning anniversary getaways, buying her favorite wine, fixing our broken dryer, she was slipping out of our marriage and into his arms. That night, I packed a small bag and left. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't sleep in that bed under that roof, with her next to me like nothing had changed. I stayed at my brother's for a few weeks. He didn't ask many questions, just handed me a beer and let me sit in silence. Ryan never reached out. Never apologized. In fact, he blocked me on everything, phone, socials, even LinkedIn. The betrayal ran so deep it felt surreal. This wasn't just about infidelity, it was about losing 2 of the most important people in my life in one blow. Jenna tried to explain through long, apologetic texts. She said she never meant to hurt me, that she was broken, that I was a good man, and I didn't deserve what happened. But those words felt hollow. Too late, too careful. 3 months later, I got a message from Ryan's ex. Apparently, he had been cheating on Jenna too, meeting up with someone else while Jenna thought they were planning a future together. She was devastated, of course, tried to call me again, said she'd made a huge mistake, that she threw away something real for something that never was. But by then, I had started to let go, not because I didn't still hurt, but because I knew I deserved better. We finalized the divorce quietly, no drama, no courtroom wars. She looked like a shadow of herself, thin and pale and tired. I didn't feel victorious, just empty. Now, I'm rebuilding, one step at a time. Therapy helps. So do quiet mornings and long walks. Some days still hit me like a truck, but others feel light, like a new beginning. I don't hate Jenna. I don't even hate Ryan. I just feel sad that it ended this way, that what we had slipped through our fingers while we pretended everything was fine. And if you're wondering why I wrote this, it's not for pity or revenge. It's just so someone out there who's ignoring the red flags, who feels the distance but is too scared to look closely, knows they're not crazy. Trust your gut. Love deserves honesty. And if it's gone, no amount of pretending can bring it back. It started gradually, so quietly in fact, that I almost convinced myself it was nothing. Jenna began working late more often, claiming they were in the middle of a hiring freeze and she had to cover extra tasks. I believed her because why wouldn't I? She'd never given me a reason not to. But then, late nights turned into overnights. Team off-site, she said. Just one night, she promised. I smiled, kissed her goodbye, and told her to have fun. I didn't want to be that husband, the one who doubts everything, who questions too much. But it wasn't just her schedule. Her phone, which used to be a shared device between us, she'd leave it on the couch, the counter, the bed, suddenly had a password. I remember the first time I noticed it. I was going to play a podcast while cooking dinner, and the screen just asked for a passcode. I laughed and asked her about it. She said it was a new security policy at work. Standard stuff, she said, brushing it off. I nodded, pretending it made sense, pretending it didn't make my chest tighten. Then there was the night I woke up to find her scrolling under the blanket, screen dimmed, her back turned to me. When I shifted, she slipped the phone under her pillow like a child hiding a secret. I didn't say anything, just closed my eyes and tried to slow my breathing. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe I was overthinking. She had her space and I had mine. Couples evolve, right? But the clues kept adding up. Her kisses became more like habits, a quick peck, a passing gesture. The way she held my hand started to feel mechanical, like muscle memory without meaning. When I asked her how her day went, she'd give vague responses like, "Oh, same old," or "It was fine," and then turn the question back to me. It felt like she was trying to steer us away from depth, like every meaningful conversation had become a detour she didn't want to take. I caught myself rehearsing questions in my head. Are you okay? Is something wrong? Are we still us? But I never asked. Instead, I smiled a little harder, acted a little more cheerful, and buried every doubt deep inside. I didn't want to be the paranoid husband, the insecure one. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself good marriages have off seasons. I told myself she loved me. And then I gaslighted myself into silence. Looking back, I think a part of me knew. Not just suspected, knew. But admitting that out loud meant acknowledging a crack in the perfect picture. It meant confronting the terrifying idea that maybe the woman I loved was slowly drifting away. And I wasn't ready to do that, not yet. So I kept pretending. I kept loving her through the distance. I kept hoping it would fix itself. But love doesn't fix silence, and no amount of pretending can make someone stay who's already halfway out the door. It was a Saturday morning when she walked into the kitchen wearing a delicate silver necklace I'd never seen before. It caught the light just enough to make it noticeable, but not enough to be flashy. I asked her about it casually, like I would if she'd changed her hairstyle. She touched it, smiled faintly, and said, "Oh, it's a gift. From work. They gave out bonuses and little thank you gifts to the team for handling all the hiring chaos lately." I nodded. It was a simple answer, but something about the way she said it, a little too rehearsed, a little too quick, left a strange weight in the room. Later that day, when she stepped into the shower, I sat down at her laptop, the one she rarely used at home anymore. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. An email confirming the bonus? A company newsletter? I knew I was invading her privacy, and yet I justified it with the same voice that had been whispering doubts for weeks. I typed bonus into the search bar. Nothing relevant came up. I tried gift, thank you, even the name of her boss. Still nothing, just silence and the steady hum of the fan. I told myself to stop, that this wasn't me, that I wasn't going to be that guy, digging for dirt in a place that should have been built on trust. But then I saw it. In the downloads folder, a PDF of a hotel reservation, dated just 3 days ago. Her name, a romantic suite, 2 guests. The check-in time matched exactly with the night she told me she had to attend a late strategic planning meeting. The name of the hotel was one I knew. Not because we'd stayed there, but because it was the same one we had looked at for our anniversary last year, but decided was too romantic for just one night. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling like the air had been punched out of my lungs. It didn't feel like proof yet. It felt like a puzzle piece that suddenly made too many other pieces snap into place. The late nights, the hidden phone, the necklace, the coldness. I closed the laptop and sat back on the couch, listening to the shower running, listening to my heartbeat trying to decide whether it wanted to race or stop. She came out 15 minutes later, towel in her hair, asking if I wanted to get brunch. I looked at her, really looked at her, and I didn't know what I was more afraid of, the idea that she was cheating, or the fact that I wasn't even surprised. The days that followed were a blur of denial and restless pacing. I'd catch myself staring at nothing for minutes at a time, fingers clenched into fists, breath shallow. I wasn't eating right. I wasn't sleeping. Every time she walked past me, kissed my cheek, asked me how my day was, it felt like I was living in a play, reading lines from a script while a fire quietly burned behind the stage curtain. I rehearsed the confrontation like I was preparing for the biggest presentation of my life. In the bathroom mirror while brushing my teeth, I whispered the words I wanted to say. Jenna, I know. I found the hotel receipt. Please, just tell me the truth. Each version ended differently, sometimes with her crying and confessing, sometimes with her denying everything, sometimes with me breaking down. I kept running through them, as if by rehearsing every possible outcome, I could somehow protect myself from the one I feared the most. I thought about doing it at night, when things felt raw and real, but I didn't want darkness to become part of the memory. I thought about confronting her at a restaurant, neutral territory, but that felt cruel, for both of us. Eventually, I settled on a quiet Sunday morning. No alarms, no distractions, just us, coffee brewing in the background, the soft light from the kitchen window making everything feel deceptively peaceful. I woke up early that day and sat at the table, heart pounding in my chest like a drum. I could hear her footsteps coming down the hallway, light and rhythmic, just like always. She smiled when she saw me. "You're up early," she said. I nodded, waited for her to pour her coffee, waited for her to sit. Then I looked her in the eyes, really looked, and for the first time in weeks, didn't look away. My voice was calm, but inside I was trembling. "I need to ask you something," I said, "and I need you to be honest." She didn't answer right away. Her hand, wrapped around the coffee mug, paused mid-air. Her eyes locked onto mine, and for a second, I thought maybe she hadn't heard me. But then, slowly, she lowered the mug to the table, never breaking eye contact. There was no shock in her face, no panic, just stillness. Then she smiled, just a faint curve of her lips, not cruel, not warm either, like someone opening a door they'd been waiting behind for far too long. "I was wondering how long it would take," she said softly. I felt my breath catch. Not because she denied it, but because she hadn't. I asked again, this time with more edge in my voice. "Jenna, are you seeing someone else?" She nodded. "Yes," she said with a kind of strange peace. "I've been waiting for you to ask." There was no dramatic gasp, no tears, no defensiveness. Just those words, hanging between us like a pin pulled from a grenade. And I didn't know what to say. I had played this moment out 100 times in my mind, imagined her lying, crying, begging, denying, but I hadn't imagined her admitting it so plainly, as if it was no longer a secret worth hiding, as if the hardest part was already over for her, as if this wasn't the moment everything shattered, it was the moment she was finally free. I stared at her, the woman I'd shared a bed with for 5 years, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, and suddenly she felt like a stranger. I managed to whisper, "Who is he?" She looked down at her coffee as if the answer was written in the steam. Her fingers tapped the rim of the mug for a second before she said it. "Ryan." It took me a moment to process the name. Ryan? My first thought was, Ryan who? But I didn't need to ask. There was only one Ryan in our lives, my childhood best friend, the guy who'd slept over at my house 100 times growing up, the guy who helped me move into my first apartment, the guy who stood by my side on my wedding day, wearing a matching tux and giving the toast that made everyone laugh and cry. That Ryan. I sat back like she'd slapped me. I felt something inside me slide loose, like my memory of the last decade had just cracked in half. "How long?" I asked, my voice low. "Almost 2 years," she said. No hesitation, no attempt to soften it. "It started after that fight we had. You remember? The one where you stayed at your brother's for the weekend?" Of course I remembered. That was the weekend I told her I needed space, that I felt like we were always walking on eggshells around each other. I thought it was a reset, a moment for both of us to reflect, breathe. I never imagined it was the moment she'd let someone else in. She went on. "He came by to check on me, brought wine, Said he wanted to make sure I was okay. We talked. We cried. I don't know. Something just happened. I didn't plan it. I wanted to scream, to flip the table, to say you don't just trip and fall into someone's arms, especially not my best friend's. But instead, I just sat there, staring at her. She kept talking like she needed to explain it before the moment slipped away. Ryan listened to me. He noticed things about me. I don't know how to explain it. I just felt seen again. You started shutting down after we got married. You became robotic, predictable, efficient, but not present, and I felt invisible. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The woman I built a life with, the man I called my brother, both rewriting my history without me even knowing. I sat there, silent, as the walls around me seemed to close in. My pulse was roaring in my ears, but I couldn't feel my hands. I couldn't feel anything. Then she said the part that broke me in a way nothing else had. I stayed, she whispered, because you're safe, you're kind, you're steady. But my heart, it hasn't been here for a long time. I felt something inside me collapse. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet devastation, like a chair you've sat on for years finally giving way beneath you. She looked at me, really looked, and I saw guilt in her eyes, but not regret. And maybe that's what hurt the most, that this wasn't just about lust or some fleeting temptation. She had already left me emotionally. She had just never packed a bag. You must have known, she added softly. Some part of you, you had to feel it. You just didn't want to admit it. And she was right. I had felt it, in the way she stopped reaching for my hand during movies, in the way she hesitated before kissing me goodbye, in the way her laugh changed, quieter, reserved, like she was saving her real joy for someone else. I had felt it in all those tiny moments I convinced myself were normal. That life just gets busy, that comfort replaces spark, that love becomes quieter with time. But what I was feeling wasn't just time, it was absence. It was her slowly slipping out of the version of our life I thought we were both living. And now that she'd said it out loud, I couldn't pretend anymore. I didn't stay much longer in that house. It felt like everything in it was tainted. The couch where we'd cuddled, the kitchen table where we'd argued about silly things, the bedroom where we'd shared so many intimate moments. Now, every corner seemed to echo with lies, with the memory of things that weren't what I thought they were. I grabbed a bag, packed only the essentials, and without saying a word to Jenna, walked out the door. She didn't try to stop me. She didn't beg. She didn't even seem surprised. I was no longer part of her world, and in that moment, I wasn't sure where I belonged either. I went to my brother's place. He didn't ask many questions, just opened the door, handed me a drink, and let me collapse into the couch. It was all I needed. Silence, space. But even there, I felt the weight of everything pressing on me, pressing on my chest. What was I supposed to do now? What was next? Ryan. I thought maybe, just maybe, he would reach out. Maybe he would apologize. Maybe he would try to explain. Some excuse, some justification for what he had done. But no, nothing. Absolutely nothing. I checked my phone a dozen times, expecting a message, an apology, an acknowledgement. But the screen remained empty. Instead, I found out that he had blocked me. Everywhere. Social media, texts, calls. The betrayal was complete. It wasn't just Jenna anymore. It was him too. The man I had trusted like a brother. The man who knew me better than anyone, who had stood beside me during the happiest day of my life, was now someone I couldn't even reach. I couldn't even speak to him. He had shut me out entirely, and that hurt more than anything else. Because Ryan knew everything. He knew what Jenna meant to me. He knew how much we had built together. And still, he threw it all away, without a second thought, without even the decency to say anything. A few days passed, and I tried to stay busy, to fill the void left by everything that had shattered. But no matter what I did, I couldn't escape the messages. They started coming through on my phone, at all hours of the day, like a slow drip of words, trying to make sense of everything that didn't make sense. Jenna's texts. They were long, paragraphs really, filled with apologies, justifications, and some sort of attempt at explaining what she had done. She told me how sorry she was. She said she hadn't meant for it to go this far, that she was broken, that it wasn't my fault. She made sure to remind me over and over that I was a good husband, that I had been everything she could have asked for in a partner. But somehow, those words didn't heal anything. They didn't fix the jagged hole she'd left in my chest. They didn't make the betrayal any less real. She said I was good, but then she shattered the foundation we had built together. And now she was telling me it wasn't my fault? Like somehow, by simply existing as a good husband, I could have stopped her from making the choices she did. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I spent days and a days just staring at those messages, torn between wanting to scream, wanting to ask her how she could do this to me, and just feeling nothing. A deep, cold emptiness filled me. I was angry, but I was more confused. How had we gotten here? What went wrong? How could she do this to me? To us? But the anger faded quickly, and in its place, I was just numb. The pain didn't hit all at once. It came in waves. Some days I felt like I could breathe. Other days I felt like I was suffocating under the weight of it all. Therapy became my lifeline. It wasn't an instant cure, and I wasn't looking for answers that would fix everything in one session. But it gave me a space to untangle my thoughts, to confront the mess in my head, to talk about things I couldn't even admit to myself, let alone anyone else. I was just trying to find a way to live in a world that didn't feel like mine anymore, to rebuild a version of me that wasn't defined by her betrayal. 3 months had passed. The numbness had started to fade, but the weight of everything still clung to me like a shadow. I was in therapy, trying to piece myself back together, but the void she left was still there, deep inside me. I didn't think anything could surprise me anymore, but life has a way of throwing curveballs when you least expect it. One afternoon I got a message. It was from Ryan's ex-girlfriend, someone I hadn't heard from in years. The message was short, almost too casual for what it contained. It was the kind of message you don't want to get, but once you've read it, you can't unread it. I don't know if you've heard, but Ryan's been cheating on Jenna. I know you two are, well, not on the best terms right now, but I thought you should know. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours, reading and rereading those words. The shock hit me like a freight train. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Ryan, my best friend, the guy who'd helped me pick up the pieces of my life in the past, the man who'd stood beside me through thick and thin, had been hiding his own dirty secret all along. I didn't know what to feel. Was this karma? Some twisted form of revenge? Part of me thought it should make me feel vindicated, like justice had somehow been served. But the truth was, all I felt was sad, so much sadness.